Hey guys, I'm back. There was like a couple things that I forgot that I wanted to mention, and also some stuff that I wanted to read. I forgot to mention in that video something I wanted to talk about specifically because I felt like it was just like really fucking egregious. Was also that they were fucking faking SATs. They were like faking SAT scores. Like they had all these various like levels to the scam, right? Of like we're gonna do this, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do this. We're gonna have this side doorway with the athletics. We're gonna mess around with the SAT scores. They had like SAT like administrators in on it. That part of the scam was like, okay, tell the SATs that your child has a learning disability and that they're gonna need more time to take the test, and that they're gonna need to take the test at like a special test prep like location that's specific for people that have learning disabilities, and then make sure that you get requests that you can take your test at. They had like a place I think in Houston and another one in West Hollywood, so they were like, make sure you take your test at one of these two testing places, and then when you get there we'll have someone take your child's test for them, because they had SAT like workers in on it, right? Like they'll take the test for them, make sure you remind them that your child has a disability so that they can get more extra time. Like it was just like a whole thing of like they were like exploiting loopholes that were designed for students with learning disabilities, just like they're exploiting, the athletics, just like they're exploiting, oh, we're gonna like again like give money so that we can like bribe officials. Like they're just exploiting everything, like fake SAT scores, fake athletic scholarships. And I also want to say that I find it really, really interesting how broke ass niggas identify with capitalists. People identify with capitalists, which is really amazing to me. Like we're talking about, and especially people that identify with like white capitalists, because we're talking about people that are able to utilize race privilege as well as class privilege in a way that Black Americans, even Black Americans with money, will never be able to do, specifically because we're Black. Like even when we start talking about like housing opportunities and like education and stuff like that, like even if you actually have the money, right, you will still suffer from racial discrimination. Like just having the money. I was just reading an article the other day about the decrease of Black home ownership. I will include links in the description box. That was talking about how Black prospective homeowners with over a $300,000 a year income are still turned down more than white prospective owners with only a $30,000 a year income, right? Just like that's mind-boggling, right? Like just because you have money does not, if you're Black, it does not fucking mean anything, right? Like you're still gonna suffer from racial discrimination. Like it's class not race is like a totally weird thing to me that just really wants to ignore systemic racism. And again, the fact that people like identify with capitalists, like I was talking to my friend and my friend was like, well, I mean, as a parent, I feel like most of us would do the same thing. Like aside from like the cheating on the SATs, like because cheating on the test and creating fake scores is not cool. Most of us would do the same thing to ensure our children could get ahead. They were like, how is this different from faking an address so your kids can go to school in a better district? I was like, what makes it different is that if you have to fake an address so your kid can go to school in a quote unquote better district, again, we're talking about school choice, right? I was like, the difference is that you're already at a disadvantage. Like you're starting from a place where you have limited resources. You are not in the shoes of these fucking people that have all this money and all these advantages and all these resources. Y'all are not coming at this from the same place. Like you are not in their shoes. I don't understand how you're identifying with them. Faking an address so that a kid can go to school in a better district means you're already at a disadvantage and a lack of resources. These people had all the resources. And this is what I said to my friend. I was like, these people had all the resources for their kids. They could afford the best test prep so their kids could not naturally, but so their kids could like get better grades. They could afford that. They could afford the best coaches and lessons for athletics if they really wanted their kids to play athletics so they could take advantage of athletic scholarships. They could actually afford that. They can actually afford the tuition to send their kids to Ivy Leagues. They can afford that. They could afford to get them into, again, sports or music lessons, extracurricular activities. They can afford to already send them to the best elementary, middle, and high schools. They already don't have to deal with the effects of redlining because they're white. They can live in, you know, these communities that are already, because just like I already said in this video, the infrastructure is already built in their favor. So they're not coming into the situation at a disadvantage in any way, in addition to the fact that they're rich as fuck, right? Like, they're not coming into the situation at a disadvantage, like a person that is disadvantaged and therefore has to fake an address to get into a better school. These are apples and oranges. Like, this is a false equivalence, but people like really identify, like, instead of taking advantage of all the resources and opportunities that they had at their disposal to ensure that their kids had strong college applications, they opted to cheat, right? That was a decision that was made. It was not required. It was not necessary. It was not made out of desperation because of lack of access to resources. I said that, and I said that to my friend. I'm going to read this on Instagram. I'm going to read it to you. Faking an address so your kid can go to school in a better district isn't the same if you have a smart kid in a shitty school district that is already a result of lack of resources. These are people that already had resources. They already have the resources to pay for their kids to go to Ivy League schools. They can already send their kids to school in the best districts. They can already afford the best test prep, the best lower schools, the best coaches for varsity sports, all things that could have been utilized to give their kids strong college applications and advantages in life. Instead, they cheated on SAT scores, created side door opportunities by pretending their kids played sports, and outright bribed officials because they wanted a guarantee that their stupid and lazy as fuck kids could get into Ivies. And then these are the people that end up running businesses and in politics, cough Trump, cough George Bush, people that are imbeciles, but money and connections got them through college and into these positions, which is also the way that the world works, okay? Money and connections and whiteness will get you anywhere. You don't have to be smart. You don't have to be qualified. This is like a prime example of that. Like, and then we look up and we be like, how did these people start, like, get into these positions? How do I have this stupid ass boss? How do I have this fucking dumbass manager? Like, and it's from stuff like this. And then instead of holding people accountable, we worship capitalism. So we be like, if I had the money, I'd do the same exact thing. Number one, I think that there's also something like morally and ethically wrong with that. Like, if you'd be totally fine with like cheating, like, especially when you have all the resources available to ensure that your children actually can have the best opportunities and you resort to cheating anyway. Like, there's something pathological about that. Like, when I heard about this story, I was just like, white culture, like, that's all they know how to do is like lie and cheat and steal and rape and pillage and get other people to do the work for them. Meanwhile, they take all the credit. Like, historically, that's all they know how to do. That is white culture. And again, that's also like, I feel like capitalist culture in a nutshell is like anything for money, by money, with money, around money, and people think that that's fine. And then they'd be like, well, why is everything so corrupt? And it's just also amazing to me that Black people be like, well, I would do the same thing. You will never be able to do the same thing because you're Black. Like, a huge part of why these types of scams and stuff like that works, again, it's like specifically because they're white, like, and they're able to get away with certain things because they're white. Like, the system and the infrastructure is literally like rigged in their favor. And it's amazing to me that Black people think that we could play by their rules, be it cheating or be it trying to, like, quote unquote do things the right way. Your Blackness is always going to impact that. So, like, keep that in mind. And I said that to my friend too. I was like, the playing field isn't fair, which is exactly why it's absurd to me that Black people think we can play this game. It's not rigged in our favor. Again, you guys know I'm really weird about higher education. Like, I love learning. Like, I love an education, and education doesn't have to be necessarily like in a college setting or anything like that. I have several videos on higher education and academics and stuff like that. I will include links in the description box. Like, I love learning. I love reading. Like, I do love to learn, and I think that an education in terms of learning and continuing to learn and continuing to be a student and just like constantly trying to like learn and grow is extremely important. But again, when we talk about higher education, which in and of itself is a classist model because, again, it privatizes education and puts education in the hands of people with money. At its basest, right, at its most basic iteration, our current higher education model is inherently classist, which also means it's inherently racist. I've said several times I'm like morally and ethically opposed to this concept as an anti-capitalist. And then when you see stuff like this, which is literally like exactly what it is, like rich white people rigging and gaming the system in their favor. Like, I try not to discourage people from like going to college, but like this is also why I say stuff like, you know, if you're gonna go to school, like know what you're gonna go for, like, you know what you're gonna do after, have an idea of a job, maybe also go to a trade school, pick up a trade, pick up skills that you can work your way through school and like not incur tons of student debt. I've just also been reading a lot recently about like student debt and how the student debt is like in the trillions, and also how the student debt has gotten so high and yet the economy is still so poor, and the lack of jobs that it's not even evening out in you know, you go to school, you pay all this money, you get this degree, but there's still no guarantee that you're going to get a job. And like there's been a lot of like philosophical talk as well as economic talk around like what are degrees even worth, you know, at this moment in time. And then to sort of, you know, find out about this scam where people are quite literally gaming and rigging the system. Like, Black people need to be like really cognizant of this type of thing in terms of the infrastructure of higher education models, because it's fucking real. You know, it's real. Like, it's very real. And you have to be aware of all these things when, you know, you have this narrative, especially in Black Americans that for so long were kept out of education, that, you know, it's like go to college, go to college, go to college. You have to be cognizant of the system that college operates in. Academia is not free from racism. It's not free from classism. It's not free from discrimination. Like, people that are in college know this as well. Like, and I just think we definitely need to be like talking about it and having more honest conversations with, you know, teenagers and like Gen Z about like college not gonna be no magic pill, end all be all, you know, end your problems. Like, that's, and then even at the collegiate level, the racism and the classism and the microaggressions all persist. Like, and just be careful about playing this game because it's a dangerous game. And as you can see, it's already super fucking rigged, just like everything else in this capital-ass motherfucking society. And racist. Just like everything else in this capitalist, racist, you know, society. That's it, I guess. I don't know.